Good morning. How are you doing? This is Angela Lee. Welcome to the Angela Lee Show this morning.
That leads to salvation, ascension, and divine elevation. I ain't trying to waste your time.
How you doing?
I just want to elevate your mind.
A bit.
Meditate and shine. Elevate.
Here we go. I think I've sorted out the sound problem. What a morning. What a morning. Can you hear me now, Carl? This morning is it working now? Good morning, Jackie. How are you doing? Oh my God, what a morning. Technical. Can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me now. Good morning.
Elevate your mind.
It's a lovely Sunday. Oh, cool. Thank you, Carl. Thank you, Carl, for letting me know that you can do my sound check with me this morning. How are you doing? We're going to be elevating our minds this morning. That's what we're going to be doing. But as usual, before we start, we're going to be doing our positive affirmation. So many greetings to you all this morning. Many greetings to you all. We're talking about our second part of archetypes. And if you can remember, we actually talked about archetypes about a fortnight ago. And we're going to be continuing the conversation again this morning. Yes, we're talking about archetypes this morning. And so, how are you doing this morning? How are you doing this morning? And Dawn is saying she can hear me loud and clear. Thank you. Anthony's saying that it's working now. So thank you, everyone. Oh my God, days. And so we're going to be talking about archetypes. Again, our second part series on archetypes. And particularly because, as we mentioned before, archetypes actually impact on our behavior. And it's actually a tradition that we have inherited from our ancestors. And sometimes we might actually wonder why we keep repeating patterns in our life. Dawn saying you're doing great. Why we're repeating patterns in our lives. And it's because of our archetypes. And so it's very important for us to understand ourselves. It's very important for us to be self-aware of how we are behaving and understands the reasons of why we are behaving a certain way. And so we're here to help you, to support you, to break the patterns, the repeated patterns of our ancestral I don't even want to call it a curse. Should we call it a curse? Could be generational curse or ancestral practices, let's say, that we need to step away from. So let me know how you're doing. I mean, some of the ancestral practices are actually quite healthy. I'm not saying that we need to shy away from all our ancestral practices, but some of it is quite dark. It's quite toxic, and we need to move away from that type of behavior. And so before we start this morning, we are going to be doing our positive affirmations. And it's all about our positive affirmations. It's all about allowing our emotions to free ourselves and to express ourselves of our emotion. It's to do with our throat chakra, to keep it clear. And it's so important when we are even looking at and addressing our ancestral patterns, our archetypes, that we are free to express ourselves emotionally in terms of letting people know about how we are feeling, how we are doing, what we're going to be accepting, what we're not going to be accepting. It's very important that we keep it clear to people about how we are doing and how we are expressing ourselves this morning. And so if you can join with me this morning, to do our positive affirmations, if you can join with me to do our positive affirmations this morning, for those that are listening. So let's go. And it's all to do with how we can actually express ourselves with our heart chakra. So let's take a deep breath this morning. Let's take a deep breath this morning. For those that are awake with me, let's take a deep breath this morning. And we are streaming live on Facebook Live. We're streaming live on YouTube, on my YouTube channel. So do subscribe. And we are also streaming live on ellensoulradio.com this morning. So let's get ready to do our affirmations this morning. And it's so important for us to open ourselves to the world and to tap into the power of self-expression and show people who we really are. And so I'm showing you this morning who I really am. So good morning to you. And we need to have the courage to express our emotions. And when we have the courage to express our emotions in a healthier way, then it's going to make us more happy. It's going to make us more confident in ourselves. And also it's going to be quite key in terms of how people actually treat us, by what we tell people about how we want to be treated and how you get what you want in life. And so if you're scared to express yourself, your true emotions, then we need to address that this morning. We're going to be talking about archetypes, as we mentioned this morning. And so let's do our positive affirmations. And so if you are lying down this morning, or whether you are sitting with me, sitting upright this morning, let's do our positive affirmations this morning. Our positive affirmations this morning. Okay, here we go. Let's inhale and exhale. Inhale and exhale. Okay, I always express my emotions. I let others know how I am really feeling. I always speak my mind. I show the world who I truly am. I allow others to see the real me. I stand up for myself. And I tell people how I feel. I am in touch with my deepest emotions. And we have done our present tense affirmations in terms of how we want people to treat us. I stand up for what I believe in. I stand up for what I believe in. I am comfortable confronting others and telling them how I feel. I am comfortable confronting others and telling them how I feel. I am true to myself, to my family, and my friends. That's our positive affirmations in terms of our expression energy, which is our throat chakra. This morning, that we're free to express ourselves. We are comfortable to confront others and tell them how we feel. And it's something we need to practice, particularly as we're talking about archetypes this morning. It's so important that we have our throat chakra opened, our expressional energy open to express ourselves, to stand up for what we believe, and to be true to ourselves. To be real, to be true to ourselves, very important. Lots of pretentious people out there wearing a mask. And we talked a lot about that a fortnight ago. And we even talked about that last week in our show in terms of living in timings and seasons. It's so important for us to be real, to be true to ourselves, and to express ourselves to people, to let them know how we feel. It's how we express ourselves to people. It's how. We're going to do it in a healthy way this morning. And so we want to do a quick exercise. We've got Dawn Crystal joining me this morning. And she's going to be joining me in terms of the conversations about archetypes. She's going to be joining me this morning. And so it's so important for us to be free to express ourselves this morning. So important for us to be free to express ourselves. So important, so important, so important. And so let's do this exercise this morning so that we can actually free ourselves this morning. This quick exercise. Okay, and so as we are sitting down, or whether you are lying down, not sleeping, I just want you to think about how we can clear our throat chakra this morning. And so I want you to close your eyes. So sit comfortably, keeping your back straight. So you're going to sit comfortably, keeping your back straight this morning. Close your eyes. I'm not going to close my eyes, but you can close your eyes this morning. If you're listening to me on the airways this morning, close your eyes and take a few deep breaths, inhaling and exhaling through your nose. Let's have a go. So we're inhaling and exhaling through our nose. Through your nose. Through your nose. And with each deep breath, we're going to imagine that oxygen is entering and exiting through your throat. So with each deep breath through your nose, you're going to imagine that oxygen is actually entering and exiting your throat. And now imagine a blue ball of throbbing energy pulsating within your throat with each inhale and exhale that you're taking. So as you're inhaling and exhaling through your nose, and you're imagining that it's actually throbbing through your throat, I want you to just inhale and exhale with each breath, and imagine oxygen entering and exhaling through your throat. And so you're going to imagine a blue ball of throbbing energy pulsating within your throat with each breath that you take. And whilst we're doing this exercise, this is actually calming your throat chakra and your spirit. Breathing in through our nose. But we can imagine it going through, pulsating that blue ball through our throat. And it's clearing clearing our throat chakra and our spirit. I can actually feel that impact. Can you feel that? You're clearing your throat chakra and your spirit. And as your throat opens, so too with your ability to restore the use of your voice to more easily express yourselves and your feelings without doubts and fear. Without doubt and fear. And I was speaking to a client yesterday, and as you know, I'm a coach, and they were feeling a bit anxious in terms of expressing their feelings. And they were sort of feeling apprehensive of what that impact's going to look like. And so their throat chakra was actually blocked. And I was able to do this exercise with them, and which I'm doing with you this morning. They were able to express themselves. And so maintaining an open expressional energy center also helps restore the connection to your thoughts so that when you want to speak, you do so mindfully and with ease. So this is what this expressional energy center does. It helps to restore your connection to your thoughts so that when you want to speak, you can do so mindfully with ease. So I'm hoping you can feel that vibration this morning. And I just want us to repeat this affirmation that you're going to carry with you today. I am able to express myself with ease. I am able to express myself with ease. Let's say that a few times. I am able to express myself with ease. 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 And I'm hoping you have enjoyed that exercise this morning. And so feel confident to express yourself with ease this morning as you clear your throat chakra this morning. And so this morning, as I mentioned, we're talking about archetypes. Archetypes. If you can remember, archetype is actually a Jungian sort of theory called Jung. And it's a primitive and mental image inherited from the earliest human ancestors. And it's supposed to be present in the collective unconscious. That's what we're talking about this morning. And so it's actually a universal, it's actually an inborn models of people and behavior or personalities that play a role in influencing human behavior. And they were introduced by the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, who suggested that these archetypes were archaic forms of ingrained human knowledge that's been passed down from our ancestors. And that's what we're going to be talking about this morning. And so join in the conversations this morning. And I've got Dawn Crystal joining me in a few minutes. I'm going to play a number and I'm going to see you in a little while. So join in the conversations this morning as we talk about archetypes this morning. Join in the conversation this morning. Playing a lovely number by Denise Wise, Spare Me. And it's about breaking those ancestral patterns. Listen to the lyrics of the song this morning before we welcome Dawn Crystal this morning as we have a conversation about archetypes, breaking the patterns. Breaking the patterns of things that we have inherited from our ancestors this morning. That's what we're talking about this morning. So we're going to spare you. We're sparing you from the things that were passed down ancestrally. We are sparing you this morning. We're breaking the patterns this morning. We're breaking the patterns this morning. Good morning, Dawn. How are you doing?
Good morning, Angela. I'm doing good, thank you. How are you doing?
Had a few technicals this morning. The internet wouldn't work. But I managed to sort it out this morning. We're talking about breaking the patterns this morning. So join in the conversations this morning. Talking about breaking the patterns this morning. So join in the conversations this morning. Archetypes. That's what we're talking about. So important, isn't it, for us to break the patterns of the things that we've inherited. So important this morning for us to break those patterns this morning. The things that we've inherited. Many blessings, Frankie. How are you doing? Many blessings to you. We're talking about archetypes this morning and breaking the patterns this morning. So join in the conversations this morning. Things that we've inherited. That's what we're talking about this morning, breaking the patterns. Things that we've inherited this morning. We're going to break the patterns this morning. We're going to spare you this morning. Sparing you this morning. We don't have to remain stuck this morning. We can break the patterns of the things that we've inherited. We can actually break those patterns this morning. So don't feel stuck. Don't feel that you have to continue with that pattern this morning. That's what we're talking about this morning. Breaking the patterns of what we've inherited this morning. And so good morning to you, Frankie, to Curly Watts this morning. Morning to you, Jackie, Carl Perkins. For those that have joined us on the airways, and for those that are joining us on ellensoulradio.com on the YouTube channel, good morning to you. For those that are joining me on StreamYard, good morning to you this morning. We're talking about archetypes this morning, and about a fortnight ago, we were talking about archetypes. And as you can remember, archetypes are universal inborn models of people's behavior or personality that play a role in influencing human behavior. And so they were introduced by the psychiatrist, a Swiss psychiatrist rather, called Jung, who suggested that these archetypes are archaic forms of innate human behavior, and they're passed down from generations. They're passed down from our ancestors. And the concept of archetypes appears in areas relating to behavior, historical, psychological, and a literal sort of analyst. An archetype can be a statement pattern of behavior, a prototype, a first form of a main model of that statement, patterns of behavior, objects, something that we emulate from passed down behaviors and patterns. And so if you can remember, a fortnight ago, we were talking about 4 distinctive archetypes. And if I can just quickly run through those 4 distinctive archetypes quickly for you. We were talking about the self, which is the anima and the animus. And the anima is we're talking about both the masculine and the feminine aspect of self. the tyrant, the sadist, the high chair tyrant, trickster, which is a part of us, our shadow and our dark side, the innocent, the addictive. Those are the parts of archetypes that is based on the Jung theory. Now, we're going to look at self as we continue this conversation. And the self is an archetype that represents the unified unconsciousness and the consciousness of an individual. Now, Jung often represents the self as a circle, a square of Mandela. That's what Jung represents the self as that. So creating the self occurs through a process known as individualization, in which the various aspects of our personality is actually integrated. Now, Jung actually believed that disharmony between the unconscious and the conscious mind could lead to psychological problems. Bringing these conflicts into awareness and accommodating them into the conscious awareness was important, and particularly in part of expressing ourselves as individuals. It's so important that we bring the conscious awareness of self. If we don't do that, it's going to actually cause psychological problems. Dawn, do you want to share anything with that?
Good morning, Angela.
Good morning.
You're looking great this morning.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was really intrigued. I started reading up a bit more about this because last time I think I didn't really quite understand what Jung was saying. And I looked more into it yesterday. And there's such a comparison between what he's saying and what Dr. Bach said, where he calls it the 12 personality types.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And following through what you're saying is, I think when we're not living in line with what is true, our true personality type, or archetype, whatever Mr. Jung wants to say, is when we feel in disharmony.
Yeah.
And if the deeper we go away from who we should be, is when that disharmony comes in.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The deeper when we go away from ourselves. And so when we're not actually our true selves, we're wearing this mask of pretentiousness.
Yeah.
Jung is saying that it's going to cause you disharmony. Ruth has explained it's similar to Bach, that we're going to have conflict within ourselves because we're not actually our true selves. And so there are, Jung actually suggested that there are two different centers to our personality. And as we talk about self this morning, I want us to really listen and let us understand the makeup of who we really are, so that we can actually have a balance, so that we will not feel disjointed. We'll not feel a sense of disharmony, a sense of imbalance in our lives. And so when we look at the different centers in terms of our personality, we are looking at our ego. And we talked about our ego before. That makes up the center of our consciousness. But it is the self that lies at the center of our personality. So it's the self that actually lies at the center of our personality. And so personality encompasses not only consciousness, but also the ego and the unconscious mind. Dawn, what would you like to add to that?
That's very powerful, actually. And I wonder how many people actually think or realize that when they're out of sorts, how far they've got away from all of that. Because, you know, we actually go through our day to day and we go deeper and deeper into whatever's happening. Mm-hmm. And what you're saying is basically, if we stopped and realigned ourselves and thought about the, you know, implications of what we're doing, we could get back to that self, couldn't we?
We can, because our personality encompasses not only our consciousness, but also our ego and our mind. And it's at the center. Our personality is at the center of self. And so if somebody says, oh, you know what, and you've got such an amazing personality, or Dawn, you've got such a lovely, engaging personality. Our personality is the center of self. It's who we really are.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's our ego is actually encompassing in that. And so, you know, whatever your ego looks like, and it's good to have healthy ego, but there is also another side to our ego, which is the dark side of our ego. And we mentioned a bit of that shadow side of us, which all of us have within us. And it's so important for us to be able to balance the two. It's the feminine and the masculine balance within us, which we talked about. We're going to delve a bit deeper into as we talk about this morning. And so this morning, if you're joining us this morning, good morning to you. We're talking about archetypes this morning, which is something that we have inherited, that's been passed down through the ancestral bloodline. And if you're struggling with a pattern of behavior, if you feel that you're going round in circles and you can't get off that merry-go-round, if you're feeling that you're on a psychic, karmic journey, just going round and round and you can't get off that merry-go-round, we are talking about archetypes this morning. Good morning to you, Denise Wise. How you doing? Denise, we've played your lovely number. Spare me. I'm going to play your other number again. And Denise is saying, taking off the mask needs our own permission and courage. Absolutely. To take the mask that many of us are wearing and or carrying. And sometimes we wear it because we are trying to protect ourselves, perhaps from trauma. Why do we wear the mask, Dawn? Why are some of the reasons we wear a mask?
Sometimes we're afraid to face up to what we're experiencing. But I think for me, a lot of my life, I lived a lot of the time worrying what other people thought about me. So I tried to fit into what they wanted me to be.
Yes.
And that was actually, for me, looking back, I'm thinking, I think I lost 30 years of my life because I don't know who I was in there.
Just imagine 30 years of your life wearing a mask, wanting to fit in. And there's many of us that are listening on the airways today. Perhaps we were conditioned, and I know that Denise Wise has had that experience in terms of mind conditioning. I've had it when I was growing up as well. Someone, your family, your ancestors have passed down a certain belief system, a certain doctrine, a certain way of life that enslaves your mindset, that does not free you up to be me. And it's so in sync with Dawn's book, Free to Be Me. Perhaps something has been passed down ancestrally. Yeah. And you can't explain, why are you repeating the pattern? Why do I continue this type of behavior? And you can't get off this toxic cycle, this toxic circle that's going round and round. And as Dawn says, 30 years later, it took her 30 years to get off her merry-go-round in terms of being free to be herself. Dawn.
Yeah. I'm just listening to you. It's like almost like you've been playing my story for me. Thank you. For me, I didn't actually realize that there was a choice, Angela. And I think, for anyone who's now starting to look at this in a deeper sense, look at the choices there are. And for me, I'd just go round and round this circle. And now looking back, I can see I was probably following in my mother's footsteps.
There you go. You were following your mother's footstep.
Yeah. Learning to keep the peace, doing as I was expected of, being subservient, not wanting to upset the apple cart. Knowing that other people could cause problems for me if I put my hand up and made a fuss about things. So I became like almost a shadow of who I should be.
You became a shadow of who you should be. Denise is saying that her maternal grandmother encourages from the spirit me to enjoy the freedom as we are, as women, can grasp, as she didn't have a male in her day, and she was a teacher but still felt that she couldn't speak out in her marriage. Absolutely. And so we find ourselves repeating our grandparents' pattern of behavior. We find ourselves continuing to wear that mask that entraps us, that impinges on our freedom. And as Dawn says, and as Denise Wise says, it's the permission and the courage to actually take that mask off. It's our own permission. And Dawn is saying that she didn't actually believe that she had a choice. And we have a choice. We want to encourage you this morning, listeners that are listening on the airwaves. We want to encourage you this morning that you have a choice. You can break the pattern. You can break the tradition. You can break the habit of what was passed down to you. You can break that. And I was talking to a client, and I don't need to mention her name, and she's actually of Asian origin. And there is an historic pattern of abuse where her parents were actually abusing her physically. And she's endured that for years. And this woman, she's in her late 30s, and she's taken the courage to actually break away from that ancestral pattern. And it's actually quite conversant in Asian homes where they are being abused, physically abused. And in the Asian culture, it's a hush-hush. Nobody can talk about it. Nobody can actually break out of that pattern and talk about it because it's a taboo. You're going to bring disgrace on the family, and there's repercussions as well. And sometimes those repercussions can be so severe. And I was talking to this client yesterday, and she actually took the courage, the permission to actually break that toxic ancestral practice of bullying, psychological and emotional bullying, physical punishment, because she refuses to adhere to that practice of physical punishment. And so she actually took the courage. She's a grown adult, took the courage in her late 30s, and she's left home, removed herself from that environment, and she's actually struggling at the moment. And she was, and I'm sure she's okay for me to share this, she was quite tearful. She was quite tearful because she's just beginning her journey, and she was feeling a sense of shame. And I had to encourage her last night that do not feel a sense of shame, because you should feel quite, you should actually pat yourself on the back. You should actually reward yourself. You should actually be kind and gentle to yourself, because you have done a courageous act. You have made a choice for you and your generations following you, your offsprings, that you have said, no, you're not going to continue the pattern. You have said, no, you're going to spare yourself and you're going to spare your generations, and you're not going to continue that pattern, Dawn. It's a courageous thing that my client has done, isn't it? It's a courageous thing.
It's amazing. She should be very, very proud of herself. Absolutely.
Very proud of herself.
Yeah. And that takes a lot of guts and a lot of courage. But I think, for me, Angela, looking back, I probably had moments in my life before where I could have gotten away, but I didn't take those moments. Yeah. But the moment always comes when you actually make that decision that you're ready to move on.
Absolutely.
And for your client, I would say, wow, well done. She has changed the impact not only of her generations to come, but that soul group all around her.
That soul group, how powerful. That soul group all around you. It's so important for us to break that pattern, spare ourselves, spare our families, spare our generations, the next generation, that won't be a continual archetype trait, that we don't have to continue in the practices, the negative practices of our ancestors. And as I mentioned, there are some good practices that our ancestors have taught us and has actually handed down to us, but we are talking about those toxic, negative practices that we don't need to no longer continue in. That's what we're talking about this morning. And so you can think of this by imagining a circle with a dot right in the center, and the entire circle makes up the self. So if you can imagine that circle, and that entire center represents the self, and where that small dot in the middle, that represents your ego. And so for Jung, that ultimate aim was for the individual to achieve a sense of cohesive self, similar in many ways to the Maslow concept of self-actualization. And so it's quite similar. It's in parallel, and I'm sure it's quite similar to Batch, Dawn.
Yeah, that is. He says, when you can peel away the layers which are not true to you, and he says the false evidence appearing real, so the patterns we believe we should be, you can actually find your true self. And it takes a lot of time. And I would say to anyone who's gone through that process, just be really gentle on yourself. Reach out to someone who you feel you can put your trust in, and work through it together, because this is not an easy process, but it can be done.
Absolutely. It's not easy by a long shot.
Yeah.
I mean, to leave a way of life that you've actually been born into, it's not an easy process. And I was talking to my client last night, and I mentioned to her that you should be proud of yourself, because you've taken the first step, and this first step that you have taken is actually going to be leading you to a journey of self-awareness, self-actualization, where you're going to be able to be free to be you. And that's what we're talking about this morning. And Dawn Wise has actually mentioned on the comments that she said that sometimes you have to be single for some time to find freedom from the shackles of abuse. Absolutely. You have to remain single. It's tough, but we have to do this groundbreaking things alone sometimes, the road less traveled. Absolutely, I totally agree. And from someone that's actually coming from an abusive marriages, and when you don't give yourself that freedom to be alone, you find yourself repeating the same marriages that you've actually tried to leave. You find yourself being, or a relationship, that person that you're trying to run away from mirrors the same person that you're running away from. And I agree, Dawn, sometimes you just need that time to be single, to allow yourself that time and that freedom from the shackles of abuse, because it's like a chain. It's like a shackle of ancestral abuse, and I can actually identify with that, because when I look at the archetypes of my family, of my ancestors, they were coming from a line of abuse, a line of psychological, a line of emotional, a line of physical, a line of financial shackling abuse. Dawn.
Yeah, this is very powerful today. Okay. And I agree with what Denise is saying. Sometimes you need to go to that place of isolation, and it can feel like a lonely place. So I think that's why I would always say to someone, please reach out and be honest with yourself, how you're feeling. Be gentle on yourself, forgive yourself, and recognize that all that you need to heal yourself is within you. When you recognize the disharmony within you, and it normally comes to a feeling of sadness, it can be depression or anxiety, this is your time when your soul is calling and saying, come on, let's go forward. Let's change this, because you're out of balance with who you should be.
Out of balance with who you should really be. Absolutely. And so if you're listening on the airways this morning on ellensoulradio.com, if you're listening on Facebook Live, on StreamYard, on my YouTube channel, Angela Lee, then I want you to really do an inventory on yourself. This 7th month of the year, you still got the choice to actually break that pattern. You still got that choice. As we're entering or approaching a new season, you've still got that choice to break those shackles. And as Dawn Wise says, so powerful, sometimes we need to be alone in order to do that, to free ourselves, because these shackles are ancestral. They're ingrained. And it's going to actually take a process. It's going to take time for you to unshackle yourself, to free yourself. Now, you cannot reach that ecstasy of self-actualization if you haven't got your basic needs met. And this explains why some people are in internal conflict with themselves, as they have a sense of dissatisfaction. They are at the bottom of that pyramid, that Maslow pyramid. And so if you haven't got your basic needs met, you cannot reach that ecstasy of self-actualization. Dawn?
No, you can't, because on the very basic level, you don't believe that you deserve it, or and you're also not valuing yourself.
No.
So, anything that you try to step out to do is out of your reach. Well, I can't even put it into words. It's almost like it's totally unachievable. You don't deserve it. Why should anyone listen to me? do I really want to make that difference? And I think it's a lot of fear involved, Angela.
Absolutely.
Because, you know, stepping into something new can be really terrifying.
Of course it is. And stepping into something that's unknown, which is removes yourself from that which is familiar, removes yourself from your comfort zone. It's actually a quite scary place to be, but it's a place that you have to put yourself in that situation if you want to free yourself from the shackles. And Donna says, I've not remarried for 25 years, and it's been more or less single and she has been more or less single in all that time for 25 years. And I can actually resonate with that, Denise. And so sometimes you have to remain single in order to remove those shackles. I remember I was married for 20 years, and just imagine 20 years of emotional, psychological, financial abuse. Just imagine 20 years of that. And then I got remarried. I thought, okay, this guy, I got remarried to somebody else, and he was a duplicate of that person that I was married to for 20 years. And so again, I was in this emotional and psychological abuse. And then I met another partner, and that was another, which I managed to escape, met another partner that I was engaged to. And I saw those red flags, and I started to run for my life. And again, another pattern of emotional, psychological, and financial abuse. And, you know, Dawn is so right. Sometimes, you know, you just need to remain single.
Yeah.
And I'm sort of reflecting even on my life and the patterns in my previous life, that I suppose if I had allowed myself to be single, I wouldn't have actually repeated those patterns. And sometimes, as you know, it's a scary thing to be alone, but sometimes we need to be alone in order to break those shackles. And we're talking here about personal. I'm being transparent with you this morning. We're talking about personal encounters, personal experiences. And sometimes if you're in a toxic relationship and you're wondering, why am I repeating the patterns of this cycle of abuse, of this pattern? Why am I going round in circles, this merry-go-round of abuse, whether it's friendship, whether it's family, whether it's a partnership or a collaboration of people that you seem to be attracting? Then, as Denise Wise has mentioned, those shackles need to be rid of, but it's going to take time. It's going to take a process, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. And thank you for sharing your experiences, because I thought I was the only one went through all those relationships.
No. Hell no. There has been more than that. Yeah, I've just mentioned a couple. There's been more.
It's been a colourful life.
I was wondering I'm still here.
But do you know what I think, Angela? And, you know, if I could just share for a moment, I think for me, if I'm looking back and reflecting on myself and clients I work with, a lot of the time we don't learn the lessons and we don't find out who we are before we step into a new relationship or a new job or a new opportunity.
Yeah.
And so we keep attracting in the same lessons that we need to work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that
those
can
lessons,
be really painful.
Very painful, yeah. And those lessons, we'll keep repeating those lessons until we learn.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say the first thing to do is work on yourself. If you recognize you're in that situation where you're feeling disharmony and you've got into an archetype pattern, which doesn't feel right to you, take a little time out and just write down all things about yourself that you don't like, because those are patterns you need to work on in the future. And then take a little time to write down the things about yourself that are good. And you might struggle with that, but keep adding to that list. And then forgive yourself for the things that you've put up with.
Yes.
Forgive yourself for what you've been through.
Yes.
And start working on self-love.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk more about some of the things that you can do with that. And we're not just talking about personal romantic relationships. We're talking about, as Dawn mentioned, her mother. She reflected and she found herself behaving like a mother. We're talking about archetypes in terms of things that have been passed down in your family. And so family relationships. And there's a lot of people that have actually have family archetypes, toxic archetypes in their family settings, things that have been done, things that you do in your family, that you don't speak out, that you don't talk about your business, that you don't put your dirty linen in public, Things like that, oh, it's a taboo. We don't do this in our family. Similar to my client, as I was speaking about last night, that it's an Asian family. Asian culture is so rigid. We don't do this in our Asian family. We don't talk about abuse in our Asian family. We don't talk about abuse in our family. So we're talking about ingrained behavior patterns in your family. Perhaps your family hold grudges for years, and it's a pattern. It's an ancestral pattern that they do. And how dare you confront this issue? We don't do this. You know, it's Dawn. You're nodding your head.
Yeah, I agree with you, because I can recognize all that. And I want to say before I go further, my mum wasn't a bad person. It makes me sound like, oh dear, I turned into a mirror with my mum. That wasn't good. But actually, I can see how she struggled. She couldn't stand up for herself. She just kind of bowed down and carried on. Didn't talk about how she felt. And I think, you know, how do we get there? We don't know any different, Angela. Our ancestral pattern, you know, has been like that probably for generations.
Absolutely. And there's nothing that we have done wrong. We haven't done anything wrong.
No.
I just want to touch on the 9 characteristics of self-actualization in people. And I just want to touch on these things. And I'm just going to go through this list. So you have the peak experiences. You have self-acceptance. They are realistic. They tend to be problem-centered. They are autonomous. They enjoy solitude and privacy. They have a philosophical sense of humor. They are spontaneous. They enjoy the journey, not just the destination. And so, according to Maslow, a peak experience actually involves feelings of limitless horizons, opening up to the vision, the feeling of being simultaneously more powerful and also more helpless. So it has different types of spectrums on that wheel. And so the feeling of ecstasy, the wonder, the awe, the loss of placement in times of space and time. And as we explained, that sometimes you might feel a sense of loss, a sense of loneliness, a sense of disconnect. Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that is a natural response to suddenly finding or recognizing. It might have been going on for a long while, Angela, but suddenly the acknowledgement that you're in this space can make you feel very isolated.
Absolutely. It could.
I would say it's okay to be there at this moment.
It's okay.
You need to go inwardly and start working on you.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about a bit of the shadow work that we're going to do in a minute. But if you're in that situation, it's okay. Where you are now in your life, it's where you're supposed to be. Denise is saying, it's taken me years alone to give myself the permission to be the boss in my own life. 13 years to write and publish my story, and about the same time to finally sing about these experiences. Some of these songs were written 16 years ago, and only now have I found the sense of that center to go public with them. Just imagine that. So some of these songs that Denise Wise has written 16 years ago, it's only now that she has found the courage to actually publicize them, because of those years that it's taken her, or the process that she's allowed herself to remove those shackles. Curly Dawkins is saying, the spell can be eliminated, but you have to find peace within in order to have self-value. You will never find peace if you live off that bad experience of the past. And that's so true. And that's why we're talking about the archetypes and how important it is for us to free ourselves. And so we mentioned a bit about the shadow side of ourselves, which we all have within ourselves. We all have the shadow side within us. And so the shadow is an archetype that consists of the sex and the life and the instincts. And so the shadow exists as part of the unconscious mind, and it composes of the repressed ideas, the weaknesses, the desires, the instincts, the shortcomings. And as Dawn mentioned, sometimes we feel, a bit apprehensive, a bit overwhelmed. Dawn.
Yeah, and that see, all of this is a natural reaction to recognize that you need to make a change, Angela.
Yeah, it's a natural reaction that you need to make changes.
Yeah, but I would say when you get to that moment, celebrate yourself, because your soul is reaching out and saying, I'm ready.
Absolutely. And we're going to continue with some of the practices that we're going to do before we, but we're going to give you some solutions before we end the show today. So just keep tuned in, because we're talking about something that's so critical, something that's so crucial, because there are people that are actually stuck. They're actually stuck. And we want to help you to unstuck yourself this morning, to break the patterns, to break the shackles, the ancestral shackles. And so the shadow forms out of our attempts to adapt to cultural norms and expectations. It is this archetype that contains all the things that are unacceptable, not only to society, but also to one's own personal morals and values. It might include things such as envy, greed, prejudice, hate, and aggression. And in light with the online racism that we've experienced last weekend, that occurred during Euro 2021 against those 3 young men that missed that vital goal, being prejudiced, having a sense of hate and aggression against people that are indifferent is a dark shadow side of your characteristics, and it's something that you have actually inherited unconsciously in your mindset from your ancestral. So even racism is actually an ancestral, toxic, dark shadow side of an individual. Dawn.
I totally agree with you, and that was disgusting what happened with the people being horrible to those footballers, because they're good kids. They're good students, and they've done their best. And I think, excuse me, this is bringing a lot of stuff up for me today,
okay. Which is good,
yeah. And I think when someone reflects out, and in the anger, that rage, or whatever it is, that's a reflection of how they feel.
Absolutely.
I think they need to study their own archetypes and look at, why do I keep reacting like this? Because there's something out of balance in them. It's not what the footballers did. It's their impact. Oh, excuse me, I don't know what's coming up today.
Okay. And so in terms of racism, in terms of that hate that we saw last week, that's been discussed across the online, across the networks, and it's actually raised this ugly head, because what was interesting about that, because I know that our Prime Minister, he actually was living in denial, because he said that Britain has not got actually a race problem. There's no racism in Britain. I remember he actually did this report where he had a lot of people in the panel, and they were discussing the fact that Britain is actually rid of racism. And so this incident actually raised this ugly head to actually let you know that actually, Prime Minister, actually the government, racism is actually rife. This archetype of dark, toxic behavior is something that's actually ancestral. It's something that they have inherited. I was quite horrified when they were actually showcasing all these individuals that were caught out with this online abuse. And one person was actually a business person who actually was I think he was like a manager of Seville, like a property organization, and he looked like an average normal guy. And it's quite shocking that these people have these toxic archetypes of racism, of discrimination, in terms of someone that's actually different to them. And as you mentioned, the behavior, the appalling aggression that was showcased, online. I mean, even in the stadium, sort of stampeding on families just to get, a seat, just to listen to the game or just to watch that game. It was actually shocking behavior. And as you mentioned, Dawn, it's a cry out of what they're actually experiencing inside.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. I think There are so many people at the moment don't realize just how they've got away from who they should be. They've gone into these deep ancestral patterns, which is survival. Or so, you know, from there you get the anger, the revenge, I've got to fight back. And they're stuck in that archetype. And they're not actually addressing themselves. They're blaming the rest of the world, or they're taking it out on somebody else. And I think that's a shocking state to be in right now. That is.
Yeah, so they're all there, instead of them doing their shadow work and their inner work on themselves, they are actually projecting all their anger and all their archetype type of things that they've inherited from their ancestors on people. And it's an ugly, it just makes you look ugly. And I know that guy that actually put that hate mail online, he actually got sacked from his job. And I think they should actually, name and shame these people, because it's shocking, because you're thinking it's actually thugs or people that are classless that are actually doing these activities. These are business people, businessmen, people that wear suits, people that we actually buy our services from, are individuals that have this toxic racism type of archetype that they've actually inherited from their ancestors. And so when we look at finding balance in terms of the feminine and the masculine side, Dawn, how important is that for us to acknowledge that we have both masculine and feminine side to us, and how important it is us to find balance in that harmony?
It's absolute priority, Angela, because if it's out of balance, we always keep reacting instead of just gently responding. And we do it normally from a place of anger or frustration or fear. You know, it's important to say we've got this shadow stuff going on. And for me, I know I've got a horrific temper. If someone gets on my nerves, I didn't got to swear. You know, if someone gets on my nerves, believe me, they know about it. But, you know, we need to acknowledge that's part of who we are, but we need to work on that. And if we don't get that balance, we'll always keep reacting in that same way. And we keep coming back to the situation. So it impacts on your mental health, your emotional health, and often your physical as well.
Absolutely. So important. And you know, we have to embrace ourselves, because the masculine and the feminine is a part of ourselves. Our personality and our ego is embedded with self. And so we have to embrace the ugly side of ourselves. We have to love ourselves. But as you mentioned, we need to just basically do that shadow work, do that inner work, and just accept yourself. Yeah, I mean, I've got loads of things in my personality, or things, you know, that's within my makeup that I'm not happy with. But then I work on it. I do that work, and I'm happy with myself. I'm happy with the work that I'm doing. And so we need to do that work. We can't beat ourselves up. And so Jung believed that the psychological changes as well as social influences actually contributes to the development of these sex roles and the gender identities. And Jung suggests that the influence of the animus and the anima archetypes were involved in this process. So according to Jung, the masculine and the feminine is so important, as Dawn says, in terms of that we find that balance. And so the archetypal images are based upon both, which is found in the collective and in the personal unconscious. The collective unconscious may contain notions about how women should behave, while the personal experiences with wives, girlfriends, sisters, and mothers contribute to more of a personal image of women. And so these archetypes are actually in our unconscious mindset. You know, sometimes they think, oh, well, women shouldn't actually speak out. You know, women shouldn't do certain roles. You know, oh, be quiet. I know that in some religious settings, women are actually portrayed in a certain rigid light. Dawn.
Yeah. Oh, I agree with you, Angela. And, you know, this across the cultures, I'm horrified when I look at some of the ways that women are treated. But I also notice a lot, Angela, coming back to more our culture at the moment, is how boys are expected to act differently. And like I was watching a young guy the other day who fell over and hurt his face, and he'd literally bruised all down his face. Yeah. And his dad said, "Oh, come on, get up. Don't make a fuss about it. Be a man.
Don't cry. Don't cry."
And to me, I just thought, oh my God, you've just suppressed his feelings and told him he's not allowed to get in touch with his feminine side.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is something that's been passed down. I know that in many cultures. I know my ex-husband, he was taught that he should not cry, he should not share his emotion, and he tried to pass that down to my son. Remember, my son had, when he was younger, he had an accident, and his father, my ex-husband said to him, "Don't cry, just man up." And this is as you said, repressing the feminine side, which is a part of you, and you're repressing that. You're teaching that individual, that male person, to not be expressive, not be empathetic, not be intuitive. You're repressing that natural part of him, and you're providing that male person with an imbalance.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela.
Very dangerous. And so the feminine energy is intuitive, it's empathetic. The masculine energies and the feminine energies are equally important in order to achieve that balance that we need. And so masculine and feminine energy have nothing to do with gender. We are all both energies within us. So it's got nothing to do with gender.
Yeah.
We are both feminine and masculine. Typically, men tend to have more masculine energy and less feminine energy. Usually, women have more feminine energy than masculine, although it can actually be reversal, can't it, Dawn?
Yes, oh, definitely. Yeah. And I think, especially if we're looking at now change, we're coming through a time of change and we want to make a change. Often, even a woman can go into what I'd call a real masculine energy. But we need
when she's angry, when you've pressed her buttons, you'll see Incredible Hulk.
I suddenly get very big. But that we need that, because that's our primitive state of, I can do this, I can make that change, I can survive. So it's not wrong to have the feminine for the guys and the male for the females. It's about keeping that balance though in between. Being able to talk about how you feel, but know when you have an explosion or something needs to change, that's okay as well.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay to be angry. It's okay, but it's healthy anger. How you manage that anger.
Yeah,
and we talked about that on so many previous shows, that anger is a normal emotion. It's a normal emotion. It's how you manage that anger, how you express that anger.
Yeah.
And so the fact is that society has separated the two for thousands of years. They've separated those two, masculine and feminine, for thousands of years. And so we have never been taught about how a female should approach her masculine side. We have never been taught that. And we've been, as you said, it's been repressed that, you should not be angry. As a woman, you should not be angry. Or a male should not approach his feminine side. Don't express that emotion when you feel that pain. Don't express that emotion. So characteristically, we were taught that we are either male or female, with no mention or validation on the fact that everyone has both aspects in the core of their makeup. And so for any relationship to succeed, for personal growth and fulfillment, both partners need to be in touch with their less dominant energies. A balance between the two energies is what makes us whole and helps us to sustain those healthy relationships, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. Yeah, I'm going to get in this today. This has given so much things to think. But, on the flip side as well, Angela, it's important as a woman to respect how a man feels.
Yes.
And understand their explosions or the way they're working, the way their mind is going, or to recognize when someone is suppressing their feelings. And I think for me, my understanding is you can only do that when you start to do that work on yourself.
Yes.
Otherwise, we tend to blame that person outside or judge them because of what they're experiencing.
Yes. So we've got to be mindful. We've got to understand why our men are exploding. Women, we've got to understand why we are pressing their buttons and why there's an explosion. We've got to understand, because there's a reason why they're exploding. Because we actually mentioned on a previous show that men express their emotions differently to women. It's all different because they're masculine and they have to express how they feel. We can't allow them to just repress it, because if they repress it, they're going to explode, and it's going to be an ugly expression.
Yeah,
Dawn.
Absolutely. And I think my concern at the moment, Angela, and I think it's been going on for a lot of years, is if you don't express these feelings out in, you know, some healthy way, it becomes depression, anxiety, or even self-harm.
Absolutely.
And the longer that goes on, the deeper that goes in, the further back into those old archetype negative patterns we go.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, Dawn, we've talked a lot. Listeners, those that are listening on the airways on ellensoulradio.com and also on Facebook Live and on the YouTube channel and on StreamYard, it's okay to feel angry. It's okay to let that masculine side come out of you if you're a woman. And it's okay if you're a man to express your emotions. And we don't want you to repress those emotions. However, as we mentioned, it's how you actually express that. Before we started the show this morning, we were talking about the expressional center energy, which is so important in terms of our throat chakra. And we did an exercise where we can actually free ourselves so that we have the ability to express ourselves and to let people know how we are feeling and how we want to be treated. We did that exercise this morning in terms of freeing ourselves and freeing up that throat chakra. I want to say good morning to Kaz Diamond, that's watching, Scotty Scott. Good morning, DJ Cookie. How are you doing? Doesn't matter if you've missed something. You know, there's a replay, as you know, on the YouTube channel, Angela Lee, or on my page. Good morning to you for those that have joined me this morning. And so it's very important for us to express. And as you mentioned, Dawn, that in your life, you have found that you have played that role of your mother, that archetype where you submerged your feelings. You did not want to rock the boat. You didn't want to confront things. And we find ourselves sometimes in relationships, whether it's in family settings, where we are told not to rock the boat. Don't talk about our issues. Don't talk about our problems. It's a taboo. We don't do this in our families. We want to help you now in this session, how you can actually free yourself, how you can, as Denise Wise says, get rid of those shackles. Good morning, Scotty Scott. How you can get rid of those shackles this morning. And so, Dawn, you want to take us through a couple of steps this morning? Okay.
So first of all, recognize it's okay to be unhappy right now. Your unhappiness is showing you that you need to change something.
Yeah.
So start right at the beginning and just go to that place where you can start to be calm on yourself. Maybe we'll do a little quick meditation thing in a moment. But I think for me and for anyone I work with, the honesty is the most important bit right now.
Yeah.
And to know that beyond what you're going to go through, you have got the truth within you that you need to be.
Yes.
And for me, I went from, I think, was being like, I don't know, I want to say a passive caretaker on behalf of all the family to want to be the rebel. And sometimes that person who's up there wants to be, you know, is ready to step in. But we need to let ourselves go through that transition.
Okay, so it's very important, listeners, that if you're feeling discomfort, if you're feeling a bit agitated this morning, it's okay to feel like that.
Yeah.
It's okay for you to feel that. And you've got to acknowledge that you are actually feeling a bit disgruntled. You're not happy in your situation. It's fine. That's a start. Dawn.
Yeah. And forgive yourself. So I do like a forgiveness meditation, which you can find on my website, dawncrystal.com. And it's like, I need to forgive myself today.
Absolutely.
Forgive myself for what I've put myself through,
yeah,
any implications of what's happened around me, and maybe even take it out of my head and put it on paper and be honest with myself. This is what I've been experiencing. This is what I've been doing.
Yeah. And sometimes we beat ourselves up unnecessarily.
Yeah.
We have no problems forgiving other people, but we have problems forgiving ourselves. And so we beat ourselves up. We have an internal conflict within ourselves. And so I want to encourage you this morning that be good to you. Start forgiving yourself first and foremost. Yeah. Acknowledge what your situation and start forgiving yourself and forgive the abuser, forgive someone else. And how can we forgive those people that have hurt us, Dawn? What sort of things that we can do? I know that you've mentioned we can start writing things down.
Yeah. For me, I like writing. So that's my way. As I write a letter as if I'm talking to that person.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily post it to them, but it's a sense of relief for me. And then I work with a meditation where I'm sending it through the higher self and saying, I'm getting ready to forgive. I'm not always ready yet, but at least they know I'm in that process of learning to forgive.
Absolutely. And so this morning, because I was even mentioning to my client yesterday that you probably haven't got the strength, and she was feeling a bit sort of apprehensive in terms of, oh, do I have to actually meet my father and my parents? And she knows that if she was going to bring that situation up, it's going to cause such a conflict in the family. And I said, no, you don't actually need to do that. You don't actually need to meet them physically. And sometimes I actually encourage her that you just need to write that letter. And, perhaps you don't even have to mail that letter, but you're actually writing down, you're making it a letter, you're addressing it to that person that abused you. You are addressing it to that person you've got conflict with. And as we mentioned this morning, it's so important for you to confront conflict, that expressional center, energy center, to free your throat chakra, to feel that you have got the choice to express yourselves. And so it's important to write it down, write that letter, let them know, as if you're talking to them, as Dawn mentioned, as if you're talking to them personally, and let them know how you feel. And then you can actually throw that letter away, or you can burn it, can't you, Dawn?
Oh, definitely, yes. And either one is effective. We need to do what's right for us. But I think one exercise I found really helpful is what I call healing your inner child, where you think about that person who's, whether it's someone, it's yourself yesterday or as a younger child going through that situation, and just talk to them and give them a big hug and just let them blend into you and feel that love coming back.
Yes.
Just feel that love and just imagine them in front of you and just holding them, and you just breathe into that love and you're coaching them to come towards you with love, and then you blend together. And together we can do this.
And it's a love thing, we don't want to, add fire to the fuel, as it were, because remember, these people that have abused you or have mistreated you, it's a learned pattern. It's something that they've inherited. It's an archetype that they have inherited from their ancestors. And so we can't blame them. It's something that they don't even realize what they're, not saying they don't realize what they're doing, but because at some point you've got to take responsibility of your actions. Hey, Dawn. However, it's something that they have inherited.
Yes, absolutely. And I think for me, that was where the remedies, because I work with, which way are we going for the camera? With the remedies were invaluable to me. They helped me to peel away those layers of what I believed was true about myself and about the situation around me. And they gently put me back in balance with who I should be, not who I believed I was in the past. And the more I worked with them, the more I peeled away those false layers, the more I started to like me. And that was a whole new revelation, the fact that I was an okay person.
Yes. The more you took away those layers. And so important. And it's so important. Self-acceptance starts with self-awareness and self-consciousness. And so you are living in the present moment and you are aware of yourself. And so we've mentioned, acknowledge your feelings, how you feel. It's okay to feel disgruntled. It's okay to feel a bit peeved off about the situation. It's okay to feel uncomfortable. Forgive yourself. Forgive the abuser. Write that letter. Let the abuser, the person you want to confront, your family member that's, pressing your buttons, write that letter. Let them know how you're feeling. Confront the issue. Burn the letter. Throw it away. The next step. What else do we do, Dawn? We talked about breathing.
Breathing. Can I just say before we go there, I would say don't ever feel ashamed to reach out and say this is what's happening, because there are a lot of professional people out there, like including you and I, who are ready to listen, and that's what they want to do. That's what their passion is in life, and they have normally been through the stuff that you've been through.
Absolutely.
So that's why you always choose the right coach or the right therapist.
Yeah, and I just want to put it out there. I'm a life coach as well as other things. So if you want to reach out to myself and Dawn, she's also a life coach. You can reach out to us. You can send us an inbox, message us. We'll be able to support you on your journey. Just want to put it out there. This is a spiritual and well-being show. And, we're not getting paid to do this show. Every Sunday, I sacrifice my time for the people, because I know there's a lot of people out there hurting. I've been through that journey. I've done the shadow and the inner work, and it's a process. We all, we haven't. We're on a different pathway in our journey, and some of us are just entering that journey where we are feeling the pain and feeling the trauma, or many of us are actually down the line where we are getting that healing, and we're and we're getting that, we can see that the outcome of that journey. And so just be kind to yourself. Don't feel a sense of shame. And I remembered when I felt a sense of shame when I was going through what I went through, I felt a sense of shame. But because I've always been someone that spoke out, which was, I suppose, one of my attributes, I always liked talking. And so that helped me. So I started to, talk to a counsellor, talk to a therapist, use the talking therapy. And I started to write books, talk about, how I was feeling. And most importantly, being kind and good to myself, and not beating myself up, liking me. So important to embrace ourselves and have self-love, Dawn.
Yeah, absolutely, Angela. Wow, I'm going to clear some stuff today. Okay. I was listening to what you said about your clients, and actually it's funny because I've had 3 clients this week. All have had either waterwork problems or chest problems.
Yeah.
And a little meditation I like to do with people is just gently. Have we got a couple of minutes just to do a little meditation?
Absolutely, yes. Let's go ahead, Dawn. Go ahead.
Okay. So basically acknowledge that anything that we've not expressed often gets stuck in what we call the higher heart, which is here. Yeah. And this is responsible for the immune system and your thymus gland. So those mood swings and feeling under the weather. All right. And what you can do is just tapping gently on here. And just tapping and say, I am free to express how I feel today. And combine that. I couldn't think of a word for a minute.
I'm free to express myself today.
With some breathing. So breathing into your tummy. And I am free to express all those thoughts I've been holding.
I am free to express all
let go. And when it comes out, sometimes it might come out as a sometimes it might come out quietly. Sometimes you just might want to go, I'm not going to do it on here. It might come out as the most awful scream, but you've been suppressing that. And when you actually start to release it, and then you keep going.
I am free to express myself today.
Yeah. I am joyfully expressing how I feel today. I am happy to talk about me.
I am happy to talk about me. I'm joyfully expressing myself today.
Yeah.
Are we all tapping on the radio this morning? Let's start tapping, listeners. Facebook listeners, start tapping your chest this morning, your throat chakra. Free yourself this morning. You're free to be yourself, free to express yourself this morning.
I speak from my heart and I joyfully celebrate I can speak out. I am free. Yay, look at me.
Free from my heart. And we did this exercise this morning. I'm going to repeat the exercise again that we did this morning. I can feel that. I can feel that.
It will make you feel warm. It might make you feel tingly. It might make you feel like you want to yawn or go and cry even. But you are saying all of this stuff that's been blocked in here is blocking between here and my heart chakra. And down to your stomach where your soul passion lies. You're blocking it all by not expressing how you feel. So this is your time. You are the only person who might have the privilege of telling that person how they feel.
Yeah.
Through their letter, through talking verbally, through the higher self. Today, please listen to what I have to say, because this is a valuable lesson for us both, and we are ready to let go now. We are ready to forgive and move on. We are free.
We are free.
Let it go. Shake it out. Just shake it out. Let that chi energy run down your hands.
Shake it out.
Let it go. Oh, let it go.
Dawn, I just want to thank you.
Thank you.
I'm taking all your time this morning. Many blessings.
I love it. I'm so grateful to be here. And well done, everybody. Make that change, because the new is waiting for you.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining me, Dawn. And
And
if you haven't got Dawn's book, Free to Be Me, you need to get her book. You need to get her book. It's on Amazon, Kindle, and you can purchase it as well. Get Dawn's book. Many blessings.
Thank you. Thank you, Angela.
Okay, so just want to thank you all for joining me this morning. I hope you've enjoyed that show. We're talking real talk this morning. We're talking about how important it is for us to be able to express ourselves and we should not feel guilty, or we should not feel a sense of shame on how we express ourselves. That we have actually got a choice. We have actually got a choice to remove ourselves from the archetypes that we've inherited from our ancestors that are toxic. Those dark archetypes that we've inherited, that's impacting on our personality, that's impacting on our persona. We have the choice this morning. We've talked about how we can free ourselves this morning. So I'm hoping that you found the show quite beneficial for you. We've talked about Jung and how important it is for us to be aware of our archetypes that we've actually inherited from our ancestors, and how we can make the choice to set ourselves free, that we don't need to adhere to those things that we have inherited. We can actually break the pattern. That's what we have spoken about this morning. We have spoken about how important it is for us to actually take responsibility. We can't blame anyone. It's our responsibility to take action on how we feel, on how we express ourselves. We can't blame anyone. And I don't want you to feel a sense of shame this morning. I want you to feel a sense of relief this morning, a sense of relief. I want you to feel a sense of freedom this morning. I want you to feel a sense of freedom this morning. Let me know how you're feeling this morning, and let me know how the show has helped you this morning to free yourself this morning. Just let me know. Let's take some time out, a quiet time out this morning, and let me know how the show has helped you to free yourself this morning. We've done a lot of talking this morning. Just let me know how the show has helped you to free yourself this morning. Let's have a conversation. Just let me know how the show has helped you free yourself this morning. And I just want to read the words of Dawn's song, Don't Pass It On, before I go. Just want to read it out to you this morning. Don't pass it on. And it says, one day like another, which way? I don't know. I've lifted and I've drifted, but the burdens don't seem to go. Break the pattern for the sake of your kin. Break the past. Break the pattern for the sake of your kin. Don't pass it on. Learn to love them and all will win. Don't pass it on. Your parents, they gave you what was given them. Ancestral. They didn't know. They were not aware how they could grow. Break the pattern for the sake of your kin. Don't pass it on. Learn to love them and all will win. Don't pass it on. Bridge how the circle repeats itself. Lies, abuse and fears. How the circle repeats itself. Lies, abuse and fear. Get a beating, you will beat. You know you're worth more than that. Get a beating, you will beat. You know you're more than that. Break the pattern for the sake of your kin. Don't pass it on. Learn to love them and all will win. Don't pass it on. Break the pattern. For the sake of your kin, don't pass it on. Don't pass it on. And that's the song from Dawn Wise. If you haven't heard her song, that's her song. And I'm going to see whether I can play that before I go this morning. Don't pass it on this morning. Dawn Crystal, it's saying it's helped her to realize that I'm not alone and it's okay to express how I feel. The right people will hear me. And if you go to her page, Free to Be Me, for more information on Dawn. Don't pass it on this morning. Free yourself. You have the right to be yourself this morning. Just want to thank you for joining me this morning. Have a great Sunday. Have a great Sunday. And have that conversation. Whether you're going to write it and burn it, write it and throw it away. Start writing how you feel and break that pattern. Don't pass that archetype that you've inherited from your ancestors that is toxic, that no longer serves you. Don't pass it on this morning. Break the patterns. Have those meaningful conversations, those healthy conversations. Express yourself. Clear your throat chakra, your heart chakra, so that you can release yourself from internal war, internal agony, internal conflict. You can break the pattern this morning. Don't pass it on. And don't play the blame game. Our ancestors, they didn't know. Our parents, our grandparents, they didn't know any better. It's something that they've inherited. But we're going to break the pattern this morning. And for those of you that missed the show, you can actually listen to the replay this morning. Have a great Sunday. Be kind and be good to yourself. And don't pass it on. I'll see you same time next week, Saturday and Sunday, between the hours of 9 and 11. Many blessings. Have a great day. Enjoy the sun.